The comet appears, parading its glory, a microcosm of primordial wisdom, the design of the universe, reflected in the image of the comet spinning across the sky, a glory cloud for our eyes to discern. Amazed, we discern an image of wisdom, the blueprint of the cosmos, displayed for our pleasure and delight, just because. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Norm Habel writing about the appearance of Halley's Comet in 1986. Do you remember it? It's an amazing event. And it's an approximately 2000, so be prepared, it's 28th of July 2061. It's coming back, so I'll see you then. So welcome everyone, and that's in this beautiful book, The Wisdom Trinity by Norm Habel, which is one of the reasons we're here tonight. So welcome everyone to the Seminary of the Third Age August series, Searching for an Authentic Spirituality of Creation. I'm Fergus McGinley, and tonight, our final date for August, we have a special treat for you. Not only our usual lecture, but a book launch as well. This book. We're going to hear from our old friend and long-time seminarian of the Third Age, Norm Habel, as well as launch his latest book, The Wisdom Trinity. It's going to be a great night. But first, some housekeeping. Please do make sure your mobile phones are on silent. The toilets, if you're looking for them, are out off the foyer to the left and the right, near the entrance where you came in. Now, tonight's session is being recorded, so please, when you ask questions of the speaker, please wait for us to bring you the microphone to speak into. And we'll give you some instructions about eating and drinking a bit later in the evening when we're ready to serve our refreshments, which obviously we'd love you to stay for. So now, without further ado, I'd like to start the evening by introducing Pastor Bob Kempy, who is Emeritus Lecturer at the Australian Lutheran College in Adelaide and a long-time friend and collaborator of Norm Habel, to introduce us to this evening's, to the book launch, and then to introduce Norm. Please welcome Bob to the podium.
Thank you. Lovely to be with you here this evening. And it's an honour to launch Norm's latest book, The Wisdom Trinity. And the first thing I'd like to do as we do this evening is actually to acknowledge Norm as an author and to ponder the fact that he's had this absolutely remarkable life in this area. He's been writing for over 50 years. I'm only starting to write a bit at the end of my whole thing. He's been writing for 50 years, and he's a writer who has international recognition, scholar who has international recognition. He's going to be 90 next year, and I think that's absolutely awesome that someone at that age is still producing the kind of materials that he is, and I hope I'm going to be able to do something like the same kind of thing when I'm getting near his age too. But it's just, wow, Norman, we acknowledge you this evening. A lot of his writing, as you all know, has been around about the book of Job and about wisdom, the wisdom theology. I just got some of his books on Job and wisdom theology and things like that. One of the things that puzzles me a little bit about this is why there's so many books on this particular topic. Is it the fact that Norm is a slow learner and it's taken him this long to start to get his head around these kind of topics? But not really, I don't think. It's simply because it's a reflection, I think, of the topic itself, the book of Job and wisdom, theology. And when you look at books' norms, you see the richness of this topic. You have everything from his Bible commentaries, where he has a look at this book of the Bible as we all do, a book of the Bible with its literature and things like that. But then, of course, Norm, being Norm, has to branch out and start looking at it in all other kinds of ways, where wisdom becomes a way of reading the Bible. It becomes a way about looking at God. It becomes a way about looking at the earth. It becomes a way about remembering his roots. It becomes a way about looking at the sacred in nature. And then tonight, it becomes a way of rethinking something to do with the Trinity. It's such a rich, rich topic, the whole topic of Job and wisdom literature. And tonight, we come to this little book called the Wisdom Trinity. And the first thing that strikes me about it is what a little book it is. 50, 60 pages. But you get into it and you think, wow, what a lot this guy has packed into this little book. And for me, in lots of ways, it's like a distillation, a crystallization, a rounding off. So many things that Norm's been thinking about, pondering about, and writing about in these last 50 years on the whole subject of wisdom and the book of Job. And the one thing I loved about the book was the way in which it flows. Norm begins by reminding us in the book what he's talking about. Wisdom literature. And when he talks about wisdom, I'll just quote to you some things from the book. He says, the wisdom school refers to an orientation that involves learning via critical observation and rational analysis, rather than revelation from a deity or a message from religious leaders. This school of thought included close observation of both the natural world and human behaviour. Wisdom thinking was akin to what we today would call scientific analysis. The wise were the scientists of old, and they understood that the subject of their analysis was both a natural reality and a spiritual mystery. And then, having told us what wisdom is about in this book, Norm invites us to become wisdom students, to learn for ourselves as we read and engage with those who have written this, to learn to discern and to see the design and the way of wisdom. And in doing that in the book, he talks to us about the three dimensions of wisdom. There is the cosmic wisdom, the primordial wisdom that's the blueprint and the creative impulse of the whole cosmos. So Norm being Norm, he starts out there, way in the beyond. But then brings it closer to talk about innate wisdom, the wisdom that is to be found in all of nature, and that becomes the driving force that innovates all the realms of nature. And then he brings it down to us, to incarnate wisdom, the innate spiritual compass whereby each living creature, that includes you and that includes me, enables to learn to discern wisdom and to act wisely. So he paints a picture of the wisdom world in which you and I might become engaged. And then, having done that in this little book, he invites you and me and all those who would read this book to develop our own wisdom consciousness and to learn to what he calls practice wisdom and spirituality. That's not an easy thing to do, to engage with this whole notion of wisdom and to engage in spirituality. And there are two reasons why not. First of all, because what Norm says in this book, as simple as this little book is, I think is so very, very difficult to grasp and to get hold of. When I first read this book quite a few months ago, As I wrote on the back blurb, after the reading the Wisdom Trinity, Ray, my wife, who had also read it, commented, "I don't really understand a lot of what Norm is writing about here, but I feel it." I resonate with that. I belong to a group of guys who meet once a month, and we've engaged with Norm over the last I don't know how many years, and we've talked ad infinitum about what wisdom is about. And I recall one of the members of our group become totally frustrated because could not get sometimes what it was that Norm speaks about when he talks about wisdom and what wisdom is and how wisdom works. A little book, but a huge concept, and it makes it challenging to read and to get hold of. And the second thing that makes Norm's way of seeing and of writing in this little book is that he challenges the old ways of seeing. He invites us into new ways of seeing, and those new ways of seeing even dare to challenge and contradict the old biblical fathers who wrote for us originally in the scriptures. You know, Norm will dare to write something like this, for example, about the challenging the old fathers. We have challenged the whole teaching of creation, as we have noted. According to the old teaching or the old tradition of creation, it was Yahweh, the God of Israel, quoting Norm here, who created the heaven and the earth by almighty word. But that's not how wisdom works. It doesn't see the creation happening this way. Wisdom dares to see the creation happening by God acquiring wisdom. And God learns wisdom, the way of creation of the cosmos. And when God then himself, or God's self, has learned the way of creation, then God goes to work in allowing the creation to come forth. And you start playing around with ideas and notions like this, and it blows your mind a little bit. You have this guy over here wondering why sometimes people think he's a bit of a heretic. So, it may be a little book, but it's a book that I would really encourage you to take a long time to read. When you sit down with this little book, I'd invite you to have a glass of red or white wine in one hand, to have your Bibles in the other, and then take a long time to read it, and allow bit by bit what Norm is here saying about the Wisdom Trinity to gradually take hold of you too. And so in launching this book here this evening, which is an honour for me to do, this is what I'd ask you to do. And in asking you to do that, I would also hope then that the blessing that Norm would bestow upon you and me as students of wisdom would be this. May the wisdom that permeates and activates the cosmos activate your consciousness and make you aware that you are a piece of wisdom stardust. May the wisdom that governs and guides the laws and forces of nature stir your awareness and make you conscious that you are ecologically connected with every atom on the earth. And may the wisdom incarnate in your very being come alive deep within you and make your wisdom conscious, a living place and a living being, animated and activated by a spiritual mystery called wisdom. Thank you, Norm.
Good evening, and thank you, Robert. I don't think I need to say anything more, do I? It's all been said. So I want to, however, work through the main moments the main idea that wisdom is in fact the spiritual core of creation. And I think if I get things to work, this is the next one. So you might well believe, from where you come, whether you're a Lutheran or a Catholic or Anglican or whatever, that the spiritual core of creation is the Creator God, or the Holy Spirit, or Christos. But there's another option: wisdom. The discernment discovery of the wisdom school. The wisdom school, as Bob mentioned, is a way of thinking that belongs to a particular school of thought in the ancient Near Eastern world. They were the wisdom scientists who observed. They gained the truth by observation and research, not by revelation. And there are certain technical terms that will occur throughout. They are technical terms of the wisdom school, the wisdom process of research. The first one is design. The second one is to observe and to see, that is to research by watching and seeing it. To discern, what that means to analyze what you've seen. To acquire wisdom. And it's very important that it's Proverbs 4:5, as we'll see, acquiring wisdom, acquiring insight is what you have to do. That's what the fathers say. But what we're doing is doing it ourselves. Place, everything in the cosmos has a place, a locus in the design, and everything has a way. The way is the really important technical term for the essence, the wisdom of something. Who was the first to acquire wisdom, according to the Bible? The wise elders of the ancient Israel? Or Moses, or the Buddha, or somebody? Or perhaps even Eve, who ate from the wisdom tree. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil is the wisdom tree. Or wisdom claims in Proverbs 8, Yahweh acquired me, kana, that's the technical term, acquired me first. His way before his works. Before any creation, there was wisdom. From of old, from antiquity, from the primordial, I was there, from the first, from the beginnings of the earth. So who was the first to acquire wisdom? God. God was the first to acquire wisdom. It was there, part of the world, the primordial world before creation. So, summing it up, cosmic wisdom is primordial and precedes creation. Cosmic blueprint, the pre-existing way, the way of God before the works. The ultimate mystery of all the mysteries is wisdom. The mastermind, the thinking through of how the world was created. And the ecological factor that integrates all these dimensions. Yes, ecology was there in the ancient wisdom thinking, I'll show you later. The spiritual core, the way of the cosmos. I see that and I discern cosmic wisdom. I don't know about you. The wisdom mentor asks you, asks me, asks Job, and this is what he asked Job. To discern what? The blueprint, the design of creation. For some of the texts, for example, how was Earth's foundation laid? What are the limits of the galaxies, Job? Huh? What are the domains and the depths of the universe, Job? And last but not least, how are the laws of space? How do they impact and regulate and order Earth? An extraordinary question. That's ancient wisdom ecology. But the Orthodox position, as you mentioned, the Orthodox position is that it's not wisdom, but the word. Psalms 33, the word of the Lord. That's by the word of the Lord the heavens were made, and all the hosts by the breath of his mouth. Let all the earth fear the Lord, for he spoke, and it came to be. He commanded, stood forth. That's not the wisdom school. That's the orthodox Israelite perspective, the covenant perspective of Moses. So we ask some questions now. You can ask me a question, and I'll start by asking you a question. Does cosmic wisdom, does this idea of wisdom that pre-exists the universe, make you wonder about traditional views about God? Traditional views about creation? About evolution? About mystery? Anybody got an answer about how you react to that?
Put your hand up, I'll bring the microphone around.
Or does anybody have a question about the questions? If not, oh yes.
Just in your first citation about God acquiring,
Yes.
kana, it can also mean marriage.
Marriage.
Yes, in other words, it's personification of wisdom as a female.
Yeah. You'll frequently find that in Revised Standard Versions, other versions, they didn't dare to actually translate kana, either marriage or acquire. They translated it as created. But that's not what the ordinary word means. You go through all through Proverbs, kana appears many times, acquire it. God acquires wisdom. It was there before. Very important. And as an alternative, you can also translate it as marriage. Yeah. Because wisdom was feminine. Yes.
That would have been my comment, because Chokhmah
Is feminine. That's
is
right.
feminine Hebrew,
Yep.
Sophia in
Sophia is the Greek version.
is in
That's correct.
concepts as balancing
Yeah. Yes.
masculine God.
That's right. Thank you. Okay. All right. Oh, yes, over here, one more.
Steve, my name. I'm always be cautious to ask questions because I'm not sure whether I'm meant to take what you say literally or metaphorically, of course. But your comment that God acquired wisdom would imply that wisdom was separate to God and somehow God got it.
Yes,
And
wisdom.
wisdom was before God. in some way.
Yes, absolutely.
So, yeah.
That's in the wisdom school of thought. It may not be in the Mosaic school of thought, but it's in the wisdom school of thought.
So could you just elaborate on that? What does it mean to say that wisdom was before God? Why not call wisdom God and God is more subservient or learning something, you know?
If you want to do that, but basically wisdom is the blueprint that precedes.
Precedes God.
Yeah. God uses it to create the world. And if you read the rest of Proverbs 8, goes on, I was there, she says, I was there, she said. When this happened, when that happened, all through, she's there. All right, we'll move on.
One more question there.
Oops. Sorry? Yes.
I know. What's your definition of God then?
Wait. Anyone else? All right, we'll move on. Part 2. The ultimate question is not where can justice be found or where can hope be found. They're explored in the book of Job. Or even where can God be found. The key question is where can justice, wisdom be found? That's the key question, the ultimate question. And Job 28, I've called the Wisdom Manifesto. It's a text not said by Job or any of the friends. It's the wisdom narrator, the one who's putting together the whole book. And at the middle of the book, he has this thing I call the Wisdom Manifesto. Everything in creation has its place. Gold and silver have their place in the rocks. But where is the place of wisdom? The mystery. Deep and hidden, it seems. Even from the birds, they can't see it. The powers of the underworld search for it. It's a fascinating text. So where can wisdom be found, and who finds it? Who is the wisdom scientist who can locate it and find it? Wisdom is the hidden mystery. Wisdom is the spiritual focus, not God. God, the wisdom scientist, then discerns the way of wisdom. God discovers the place of wisdom where? God looked to the ends of the earth and observed, that's a technical word, as a scientist, everything under heaven. When he fixed the weight of the wind, look at that, that's a symbol of the wind, measured the waters and made a law for the rain. Law. There's a law in the rain which governs the rain. The way of the thunderstorm, that's when God saw what? Wisdom. God saw it. God discovered it. God is the wisdom scientist in this text. God saw her, yes, it's her, in creation. And Job is asked the question then, who put wisdom in the clouds? And the answer is, God says, it was there, and I discovered it. It's innate as part of the realms of nature and of the universe. See the wisdom in that cloud? When wisdom innate in the forces of nature. Wisdom is not only the blueprint as we had before. Wisdom is the way and the lightning, the force of the wind, the mind in the cloud. Observing the wonders of nature may help us to learn to discern wisdom. To look at the Larue, the rock, and be amazed at wisdom. For the First Nations people, you probably know, they believe that wisdom is a spiritual force, alive in the land. Questions? Does the pre-existence of wisdom as a factor in the laws and wonders of nature cause you to wonder? To wonder about science theories? Is wisdom the X factor that precedes, enables the DNA to be DNA? Is wisdom, or does it make you rethink the role of God, who searches for wisdom? It's not inherent in God, as the friends tried to tell Job. Why do we wonder at the mystery of nature? And does the role of wisdom have anything to do with the current force of nature, change of nature, called climate change? Questions? Answers to my questions, or questions of your own? Yeah.
Well, in game then. Should we even speak about creation? In other words, wisdom was always there.
Yes.
In the order of things, and God just observed it.
There's a sense in which there are texts which seem to imply that wisdom was the primary force and God was watching it, noticing it, and keeping control of it. And at the end of Job 28, and God, like a good scientist, double-checked it, probed it, made sure it's true. You've got these wonderful senses in which God actually works through what he discovered in that text. Yeah? Anyone else? Okay, we move on. Part 3, incarnate wisdom. And this is really possibly the point at which it becomes very personal. Wisdom is not only present in the primordial, not only the innate force in the laws of nature, it's also an incarnate spiritual, and I use the word compass, way that guides the way, that enables all living creatures to act wisely, to be true to their character, their nature, and to discern wisdom in their world. Wisdom is incarnate in everything that lives, not just in the stars and the skies and the cosmos, but in everything that's alive. Wisdom in the wild. Now, Job was taught a lesson or two. Job was taken on his cosmic journey after checking all of the universe. He then is taken into the world of the wild. And he's asked some more questions about the wisdom's relationship to the world of the wild. Is it by your wisdom that the hawks soar? The hawks know how to find a place to put their rest, to put their nests up in the sky, in the cliffs, but how will they see where to go and know how to find food way down there on the ground? Job, you should know. Or do you know the time that the ibex gives birth and how it all works? That's another wisdom, the wisdom in the ibex. But the one that really stirred me and caused me to write a few times is the wild ox willing to serve you, to babysit for you. It's a wonderful line. The wild ox has its own character to be in the wild. You can't control it. The Imago Dei text says you're supposed to dominate over all creatures. But in this text, Job is very, very carefully told, oh no, the wild ox you can't control. You can't rule the wild ox. You can't get it to babysit for you. It's amazing, isn't it? Text? It's an extraordinary text. Is the wild ox willing to serve you and babysit? Couldn't resist it. The incarnate way determines character and becomes the innate compass to help you act wisely. Proverbs 6, go to the ant and observe the way of the ant. That's the technical, in essence, essential wisdom innate, and you'll become wise. You get wisdom from the wisdom of the ant. The ways in nature are spelled out in all kinds of texts, like Proverbs 3, the way of the eagle, the way of the snake, and the way of man with a maiden. It's amazing. The wisdom compass. Wisdom is a compass in all of us. That's what one discovers. To be true to our inner selves, our true character, to become wisdom scientists and explore wisdom around us, to discern wisdom in the realms around us, to gain a deep wisdom consciousness. Do you have a wisdom consciousness that you are a fragment of the universe? The woodpecker has wisdom. So, do you have a reason, a sense of incarnate wisdom? Do you? In nature? In the wild, snakes, the dingoes? In your own deep self? Deep within you, do you have a consciousness that there's a wisdom compass directing you, motivates you? So Fergus, when you wake up in the morning, do you say, well, what the heck am I going to do today? Or do you ask whether wisdom can help you explore a mystery today?
I seem to spend all my waking hours, and even when I'm asleep, I think in my dreams, looking for that inner compass, having this debate and this conversation with God about how to live my life. It's a real deep yearning or searching for wisdom at all times.
But the wisdom compass doesn't mean you have to go to God. You can just simply go to the cosmos and explore the truth. You can go to God if you want to, but I'm saying that the wisdom tradition enables the innate wisdom within you to explore wisdom in all the domains of nature.
Are you saying that you go to wisdom in nature, in reality, rather than God?
Yeah.
Because God doesn't really exist?
I didn't say that.
But wisdom exists.
And wisdom is the permeating spiritual force that is everywhere and is deep within everything and deep within you.
So would you say that wisdom is the Spirit of God? When we talk about the Holy Spirit in New Testament times.
You could say that the wisdom is the spiritual dimension of God, or God is the spiritual dimension of wisdom, either way.
So that's certainly the being I'm in constant conversation with.
Yeah, okay. Yes, sir.
I need to run up. No, I haven't read your book yet. I've got it here to read later.
Oh, that's good.
So, there could be obviously a lot more in the book that will explain some things, but I just opened Job 28 that you're referring to. It's obviously poetic.
Yeah.
But the last verse, I would ask you for a comment, because it says that wisdom is actually the fear of the Lord and turning away from evil. So it's pretty concrete.
What's happened is you've got a very, very radical wisdom theology in all of the verses, and somebody that's not in poetry but in prose puts a little note that the fear of the Lord's the beginning of wisdom. Don't you know? That's the old tradition. So it's either an editor who wants to correct it and make it orthodox, or it's the narrator saying, "You sure about this?" Because that's completely the opposite of what the rest of the chapter's about.
Okay, yeah, because there is some evidence apparently that this has been inserted in the poetry has been inserted.
Yeah, added to the poetry, yes.
So you're saying it's the other way around.
The poetry was first, and somebody said, "I've got to fix this."
So I've read somewhere that was the other way around, that poetry with that chapter was inserted later.
Oh, no. The chapter is fundamentally the core of the book. At the core of the book.
Do you mind if I ask you another question then? What is different about this idea of cosmic wisdom permeating everything, and pantheism?
And what? Pantheism. Pantheism basically says God permeates everything. This one says wisdom permeates the universe.
So given that this is this poetry was written by somebody in ancient time,
Yes.
who doesn't have science, and well, this is a grappling. This is poetry trying to work out, understanding the universe.
The mysteries of the universe, yes.
Yeah. Science has solved a lot of those mysteries.
Huh?
Science has solved a lot of those mysteries.
Well, science has said that they've found the beginnings of things, but this text, this tradition would say that before the bang, there was wisdom. And wisdom was involved in all the processes, whether you call it creation or evolution or whatever.
So you'd see science behind science.
There's a mystery
cosmic
behind all the discoveries of science, according to this tradition.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Okay.
One more question, sorry.
You haven't solved my problem yet, Norm.
Oh, yes.
So, we know these are words and concepts we're dealing with, and the idea and concept of God is a very changeable, or people have different views. There would be some people that, like the comment earlier, would see this force of wisdom as God. That would be
The source of wisdom.
Yeah, the force, the energy, the wisdom. So just coming back to why do we need God if we have wisdom? And, this is a very difficult and controversial sort of concept.
That's a good question. Why do we need God if we have if we have wisdom that is a spiritual force that governs everything? You can keep thinking about that question. Now, one of the texts that is rarely mentioned, but is a text there's a teenager called Elihu in the book of Job, and this teenager has a statement which really identifies what we've been talking about. What does he say? I'm a young boy in the days, and you're old man. So I saw it and afraid to speak my mind. I was scared, I'm sorry. I said to myself, days will testify and many years teach wisdom. But, surely she is a spirit in humans, and the breath of Shaddai that gives them insight. So there you go. Wisdom is the Spirit of God in that text. And it's inherent in you. It's innate in you, incarnate in you. Cosmic wisdom. Have you had wisdom experiences? Have you? A sense of mystery in the cosmos. A sense of wonder in the wonders of nature. A sense of mystery in the wild. Sense of mystery arising deep within you. Have you? It was mentioned before, you read that text, but I must go back to it, because that's one of the wisdom experiences that I had when, in March 1986 in India, there was a very visible Halley's Comet. It returned to Earth from outer space after 76-year journey through space, through cosmic space. It appears before me, before us, to discern her wisdom, her capacity to know how to do that. The image of the cosmos in miniature before me. A primordial mystery that knows its way. Halley's Comet has its own mystery, its own wisdom to know how to do the 76-year journey. When she comes back, check. And from the Big Bang until now, she's been affirming her wisdom. One more wisdom experience. I was in New Zealand one day at the shoreline near Auckland, and as I was sitting there, suddenly a whole lot of bar-tailed godwits, birds, started to peck all over the ground, eating like mad. And as I was standing there, all of a sudden, they got a signal from within, and each one of them circled up into the sky. And each one of them knew what to do. What was they to do? They flew across the equator, thousands and thousands of miles to go to Siberia. And there in Siberia, they had their children, their chicks, and they reared them. And after 6 months, they circled again and came back to Auckland. Innate knowledge, innate capacity. You can ask a scientist, but I'm saying to you, from their perspective of the wisdom school, that's an innate wisdom capacity. And so as I've handed out to you, I've rewritten John 1. Call it Wisdom 1 if you like. In the beginning was wisdom, and wisdom was with God. Spiritual factor in the core of creation. Wisdom is cosmic, blueprint of the cosmos, discernible in the moving things of the creation, moving design of creation. Wisdom is innate, a dynamic dimension, discernible in the laws and wonders of nature. Wisdom is incarnate, a discernment factor, active in all living creatures. Yes, wisdom is also discernible in the ways and works of Jesus of Nazareth. Wisdom. Is cosmic wisdom an ancient heresy worth retrieving as our spiritual compass in a world of science mysteries? Is it? I believe so. But you may want to go back to the old tradition. Wisdom, however, I'm trying to retrieve an ancient tradition in a way that's contemporarily meaningful and understandable. I hope it's been meaningful. Questions? My daughter is here. Any more final questions?
Yes, please.
One there.
Microphone.
One here?
Thanks, Norm. My name is Wendy. At the very beginning, you said it's not the word. Remember, John said in the beginning was the word. I always thought the word was a sound, a reverberating sound through the cosmos.
Oh, no. It's a force. It was understood to be a force.
Yes.
You read St. Paul's letters, it's a force, it's not just a sound.
No, but the sound is everything. I mean, I've heard the sound.
Yeah, I see. Okay. All
And
right.
it's-
Anyway, I'm
it's
just saying.
everything.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, one more question here.
So Norm, you know that during my time at Flinders Uni,
Yes.
I had many students, and some of them never had God in the picture at all. I mean, you could think of many of the Chinese and others don't have what we have in that sense, but yet in having close contact with them and real friendship with them,
Yes.
discover that they are working from, in your paradigm, they're working from wisdom,
Yes.
and it's beautiful. And then there are others who have sort of chucked God out the window. And by that, it's usually I've chucked church out the window.
Yeah.
Because there are things within the church that they just, if you like, their wisdom can't accommodate.
Yeah.
So this is my journey over the last 20 years. Now, in your book, because you gave me a copy to read, which I'm very grateful for, so I passed it on to my friend Steve. You indicate that there is this Yahwist tradition, or if you like it, you've called it Orthodox in your presentation tonight, but that sort of follows the Moses tradition, etc., etc., etc. So I sent you this question, and I'd be interested in your answers. I'm going to read it out because I've thought about it. If the wisdom tradition has been repressed by the Yahweh tradition, assumption, what are the implications for the way the Jesus story has been received? And is St. Paul, the former zealous Pharisee, so tainted by the Yahweh tradition that an alternative wisdom tradition of the way of Jesus is in need of recovery from the dominance of the Pauline epistles in the Christian scriptures?
Yes. What more? Yes.
So Norm, how come we can answer that question but not the other one we've asked?
He's going easy on me.
Okay, now my daughter Anjali is going to close this session with a song, and there's the song up there, Amazing Wisdom to the melody of Amazing Grace. Thank you very much.
Arising with the mind to search for
ladies and gentlemen, I had a feeling there's something really profound being discussed and thought about and experienced this evening. And before we wrap up, Hilary Regan from ATF Press, Norm's publisher, is going to come forward and say a few words. Here's Hilary.
ATF Press, as you probably know, is an Adelaide-based publisher which has been publishing books for about 30 years, and we distributed them here in Adelaide and internationally. And Vicky Balabansky was on our board for a number of years, and it's nice to see a number of people here with familiar faces over the years. Norm has been one of our best authors of books and has edited a number of books with us, and so it's great to have this latest book of his amongst our very many books. We've published about 500 books over the last 30 years, which, as I say, are distributed here and internationally, and this latest book of Norm's is now in international distribution as well. And as is our norm, on occasions like this, we like to give a little gesture of thanks to those who've been involved in tonight. So I'd like to present this to Norm. Thank you, Norm.
You're welcome.
And also to Bob for his launch of the book. And Bob was looking at a book on our book up there, which we have quite a number of Norm's books, as well as this latest one. But he saw a book called Bob's the Dog and thought he would buy it, so I thought we would hand that on to him now. So thank you, Bob. So quite a number of the books are here for sale, all at a very discounted price, suitable for an event like this. So thank you. And thank you to the Centre.
Great, well thank you Hilary, and thank you everyone. And thank you especially, obviously, Norm, for a wonderful presentation tonight. You will be able to review a recording of tonight's SEM 3A session by going to the Effective Living Centre website and looking under past events. That'll be up on the website within the next couple of days. Also, please look on the website for information about the next October series of the Seminary of the Third Age. Don't forget, folks, before you go, to fill in the feedback form that was on your seats. But now it's time for supper and refreshments and, of course, book purchase and signing by the author. So please, when you're ready, head into the supper area to get your food and drinks. I think we're going to ask you to please sit down while you're eating and drinking tonight. So there you go. So that's all we've got for you, folks. Finally, thank you everybody once again, and let's have one final round of applause